I'm Jake Arthur, and maybe the Colts' new kicker will make groupies out of all of us.
And I'm Zach Hicks, and I'm tired of talking about kickers, but we still have to do more of it on today's show.
And I'm Alan Pinkett, former Oiler. Does the Jacksonville curse end this week?
Colts Nation, rise up. It's the Colts Squad. Everything Indianapolis Colts every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Circle City, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to squad up. The Colts Squad Show starts now.
Good evening, everybody. I am Jake Arthur, Indianapolis Colts beat writer for Roundtable Sports, joined by legendary Notre Dame Fighting Irish running back and former Houston Oiler, the one and only Alan Pinkett, as well as my partner in crime on the Locked On Colts daily show, Zach Hicks. And welcome to Locked On Colts, everybody, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network in the entire galaxy. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining us on this frigid, cold Wednesday evening. Today, we got a kind of a loaded show for you. The early voting results for the Pro Bowl are out. Several Colts made the top 10 lists at their position, so we're going to discuss which Colts we think should make the Pro Bowl. We're going to give our under and over reactions for the week, as we always do. We're going to do a quick look ahead to Jacksonville, as Alan mentioned. It's not been very welcoming for the Colts in the last decade plus. We're going to say whether or not we have any concerns about the Colts missing the playoffs at this point. But first, the most critical of moves. The Colts have made a change at kicker. They're now on their third kicker of the season. They waived Michael Badgley after his third missed point attempt in his 7 games with the Colts. They waived him and signed Blake Grupe to the practice squad. I imagine that doesn't feel like a super permanent move going right to the practice squad because they've got the few games of elevation they can have there with the flexibility a little bit. But it's kind of a curious move, Zach, because Badgley, you had to do something there. The whole, there's accountability to it. You have to show the rest of the locker room, like, this guy is costing us points. We're going to do something about it for you guys. But at the same time, Blake Grupe, as a member of the Saints, has missed 8 field goals this year. But in his 3 seasons in the NFL, he's only missed 2 extra points. So that counts for something, I guess.
Should have had both of them, one for extra points and one for field goals. That's obviously, if you can't have, what's the thing? Like, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you don't have one or whatever. If you have 2 kickers, you don't have one as well. But I've already lambasted just talking kickers enough on the regular show today. So I will more so pivot this towards the fact that I like the accountability of it. Is like, this guy is costing us points on Sundays, and it just can't be something that sustains. And I think we see this with coaches around the NFL far too often, especially when it comes to a position like kicker, where, again, like, it's a position where there's so many guys who can do it, but you never know when they're going to have it or when they're not going to have it. And to me, I think coaches need to be a lot quicker with pulling the trigger on moving off of kickers, especially on low deals. And when you have a guy who's missed as many extra points as Badgley has throughout those couple weeks, I think it was the right time to make that move. So I appreciate the Colts making that move ultimately. And we'll see what group he can bring, because like I mentioned on the show earlier today with Jake, was previous history never matters with kickers. Every day is a new day for a kicker. You never know what kind of day you're going to get out of those guys. You could have a guy who gets cut for missing 2 field goals in the game, and then the very next team they're on, they'll make 10 straight, just because that's the nature of the position. It's so volatile. It's so random. It's so hard to predict. So we can't count out Grupe yet. I'll wait for him to miss his first field goal before I start counting him out. But I do appreciate the Colts made this move, because it's just not sustainable. And honestly, on Sunday, we saw the ramifications of missing that extra point, where on that final drive, the Colts were down 4 points instead of 3 points, had to go for it on 4th down, don't convert. Texans get the first down right after that, and it's game over. If they make the extra point earlier in the game, obviously more things happen in between, but it would have retroactively been a 3-point game, and they could have just kicked the field goal. So you can't just give away points like that in the NFL and expect to win. So you got to make these moves and see if there's the grass is greener on the other side.
Well, the NFL is not a sport; it's a business, and playing in it for the short amount of time I did, management makes you realize it is a business, because most of the time they don't talk about cutting your ass; they just come cut you. Sometimes you just know from a performance that you had, I'm probably going to get cut. Sometimes by just the numbers that surround you that, okay, they can only keep this many folks, I'm going to get cut. But sometimes you agree with that business decision. I remember when I was playing with the Oilers, we were playing the Washington football team, and we were in position to beat them. That Washington team ended up going to the Super Bowl that year and winning. But we had a kicker named Ian Howfield, and it was just a chip shot. I mean, it was shorter than the extra point is today, today's extra point. But that thing went wide right, and next thing you know, the Redskins win, and that game happened on Sunday. His ass was cut on Monday. And then we brought in Al Del Greco. So Ian Howfield, I don't think, had been in the league. Maybe that he was his rookie year, or maybe a 1 or 2 year journeyman type thing. But then we went for the experienced kicker in Al Del Greco, and just the amount of calm that came over the team that knew we had a kicker with experience, the amount of confidence we had that if we scored, the extra point wasn't going to be missed. And granted, 100 years ago when I played, the extra point was kicked from the 3-yard line. But for field goals, knowing that you had someone that was reliable, dependable, increased the confidence on our team to know that if we cross the 50, we're going to get points. And you need that type of security when you're on a football team, because it's hard to make first downs, especially when you're playing some of these defenses that are just like the Texans. Yeah, as you could see, every single point mattered so much. So, yes, it's a business, but sometimes I'm glad it's a business.
Alan, I got to ask. So you have the unique perspective of being in a locker room, being on the sidelines, being a player there on the field. When you've got a kicker that's in a slump, let's just say it's been a tough defensive battle. Yards have been hard to come by. You haven't scored in 3 or 4 drives, and you guys finally get into the red zone, and it's a 1-score game, and your kicker has been off and on like in recent weeks, and they miss it. And you guys feel like you finally got into the red zone, time to score, and they miss it. What, like, a lot of guys say the right thing, like it doesn't take one guy to change the game and all that stuff. Like what's the tea on that?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Because I always felt like we shouldn't let it get to that situation where we have to depend on the kicker. But in the contemporary NFL, sometimes it's like that. And that's why my experience has been, and I had in my career, I had Tony Zendejas, who was very reliable. And like I said, Ian Howfield and Al Del Greco. I went to the Saints for a year and had Morton Anderson, and he never missed anything. So just you knew you were getting points anytime Morton Anderson went on the field. But if they missed it, you still tried. They're still your teammate. You still try and lift them up. You still want to be encouraging with them, because the bottom line is they didn't try to miss it on purpose.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, and you guys know on this show and anytime I'm on a show or whatever, I try to always approach things from like a coaching perspective. And it's always funny to me where, and this is coming from the world's #1 kicker hater here too. So it's fascinating that I'm going to take this angle. But when a kicker misses a field goal, we say that they lost the team 3 points or whatever. But if a player drops a third down pass that could have converted a first down, that could have led to 7, we're not saying that guy cost us 4 points by having to revert to the kick now and stuff like that, where it's just the same thing. The kicker just gets more of the blame there. So I'm not even trying to defend the kickers here. I'm just saying, like, I always take it like the way that Alan started that, where it's like, it's on everybody. If the kicker even has to go on the field, I feel like it's a failed possession, in my opinion. Like, why are we letting that guy on the field? We should be controlling our own destiny and not leaving it up to a guy who, again, we don't know if they're gonna what type of day they're waking up to. If they're gonna have one of the days where they forgot how to kick the football, like, we should never put the game in the kicker's hands. And I did want to respond to some of the comments here where some people were saying, like, maybe because the questionable kicking in recent weeks, that's why Shane has not taken the points. Shane Steichen's never been a take the points on a 4th and 1 on the opponent's side of the field type of guy. Even if he had the greatest kicker in the world, even with Spencer Schrader early in the season, if you look at the field goals they were kicking, it was 4th and 5 plus, 4th and 6 plus, 4th and 7 plus. Like, they were not kicking it on 4th and 1 on the opponent's side of the field. That's just how he operates. It's how most of the good coaches in the NFL operate. And the only reason we're noticing it in recent weeks is they're not converting on 4th and 1 as frequently as they did early in the season. If a coach goes out there and calls you to sneak it on 4th and 1 and you convert, nobody questions it. But because Tyler Warren drops the snap, we question, oh, why didn't you just take the points there? Because we ran a play that was a 90+% conversion chance, that just the 10% chance didn't work there because the guy dropped the snap. So all in all, yeah, I think it's funny for me to say it. We blame kickers too much because the kicker should never be in the situation where they're put on the field. Like, we should go get the ball in the end zone. We don't want the kicker touching the field here. The kicker is the failure. We don't want the failure option on the field.
Well, the other thing I'll say too is you never point fingers because it's one of those what would you call it, Murphy's Law things. As soon as you point the finger, you're going to be the one screwing up. And do you want the finger pointed at you, especially when you're trying your hardest? Mistakes are going to happen. There's going to be turnovers. Sometimes the other team is just better and they made a better play. So you always want to put yourself in a position to be lifting up your teammates, because you're going to have some things that not go your way, and you want your teammates to have your back too.
It's a really good point. Big of you, Zach. Very big of you. It's kind of how I feel when it comes down to people criticizing officiating and say they lost him a game. Like, trust me, there's some heinous, horrendous calls every single week, and the Colts have been a part of them. But you shouldn't really be in the position for 1 or 2 calls or non-calls to really determine your outcome anyways. It's pretty much along the same line. Like, the kickers are only out there every so often. So, yeah, they really shouldn't be in the position to win a game necessarily or cause you to lose the game.
I just like how the big of me position there is saying that kickers should be just completely irrelevant and we should never have them out there. So stop blaming them because they shouldn't be on the field in general.
Hey, there was positive tones in your voice, so we're going to go with that.
That's
all right.
True.
This next one I think is probably going to be a little bit supersized, so we'll go ahead and get to it. So the early voting results for the Pro Bowl are out, and that always brings about quite a bit of debate. So let's get to that in just a moment. The holidays are officially here, which means gift hunting season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, then Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories. Because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You could preload the frame with photos before getting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. So I have personally given out several of these before. I think they are the perfect gift, especially if you're someone who does struggle to give gifts for birthdays and Christmas and stuff like that. There is not a person out there who wouldn't appreciate something like this, especially if they're a grandparent, a parent. I've given them to both of my parents. Their homes have these set up prominently. There's pictures of my daughter. There's pictures of my family up there, my siblings, always prominently displayed. They will get quite a bit of attention. You literally cannot go wrong with gifting an Aura frame. And for a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off of Aura's best-selling Carver mat frames. That was named #1 by Wirecutter by using promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. That's auraframes.com, promo code LOCKEDON. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames sell up fast, so order yours now to get in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. All right, welcome back, everydayers. Thank you for making us, I guess, your final listen of the evening or your first listen for the morning. And thank you guys for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network out there. All right, so I'm going to go through a little roll call here. The initial Pro Bowl voting is out. I think voting in general opened up like last week or the week before. And the NFL has kind of released some of the totals, like the top 10 at each position. So let's go over the Colts real quick. Jonathan Taylor is the top running back. Quentin Nelson is the second guard. Tyler Warren is the second tight end. Daniel Jones is the 6th quarterback. Cam Bynum is the 7th free safety. Nick Cross is the 8th strong safety. And DeForest Buckner is the 9th defensive tackle. So I will give a little forewarning that the Colts had a bunch of guys in this last year as well among the initial voting, like including Nick Cross. And it was not very fruitful for them by the end of the year. So the coaching votes matter quite a bit. The player votes matter. This is all fan voting so far.
Okay.
This is just the fan voting portion. So Zach, do any of these stick out? Do you think there's anyone that needs to be included in there?
Maybe Bernhard Raimann would be in there, which I know crazy to say right now because the takeaway for a lot of Colts fans how awful the offensive line has been, but. Rewatching a lot of these games outside of the Steelers game, I thought Raimann played some really good football in recent weeks. I know he got run over on that one play against Will Anderson, but outside of that, did Anderson notably beat him on any other rush that anyone noticed? I didn't see any really on film. I thought he had a pretty good day. All things, I mean, Will Anderson might be the defensive player of the year this year, and I think Raimann held his own against him for most of that day. So Bernhard Raimann, I think, should be up there, but offensive lineman, if you're not a household name, you're not going to get any fan votes. That's just how it works. Yeah. Quentin Nelson could probably not play a snap this year and still be in the top 5 for fan voting on offensive line because that's how it works. But aside from that, I think they got pretty much all the names. I wish Alec Pierce could be on there because he's had a great year, but he's just not going to have the raw stats to be a Pro Bowler.
So deep, yeah.
Yeah, receiver is just way too deep for that. Like you have to be like 1,000-yard guy as of right now. But yeah, I think when it's all said and done, we're going to have Taylor, Warren, Nelson will all for sure be Pro Bowlers, and we'll see where the rest go from there. It's a funny time to bring this up, though, Jake, when the Colts are in the middle of a 3 out of 4 game losing streak. I don't think anyone wants to hear about Pro Bowl voting.
Zero Pro Bowlers.
Yeah, they want to fire everybody. They don't want any accolades for any players right now.
Life is about balance because the end of the show is not going to be so chill towards the Colts. So we'll get some of the feel goods out of there now.
Yeah, but I think that's who I have in there. Like Taylor for sure will be there. Warren for sure will be there. Jones top 6. I mean, with guys dropping out of there, he's probably going to be a Pro Bowler. All you have to be in the top 25 as a quarterback to get into the game, essentially. And so he'll be in that game for sure. Well, actually, with his fibula injury, he'll probably be one of the guys who pulls out of the game because that's what everyone does. But yeah, no, I think they got the right names up there again, outside of maybe Raimann being in there for offensive tackle.
I was a little surprised that I didn't hear Zaire Franklin's name because he's a former Pro Bowler. And usually one of the things that happens is once you make it once, you just get that reputation, but I know that probably Jermaine Pratt is making more tackles than Zaire Franklin is. But, to have also the accolades he has of being the #1 tackler in the league last year, you think that would get him at least a top 10 mention, but I'm a little surprised at that one. Not surprised that any of the receivers got any mention, because I think they are Pro Bowl caliber. But if you're not a wide receiver number one, you're just not going to get mentioned. If you don't have the stats, you're just not going to, get it. You can't just have a handful of plays. You got to have a ton of plays to get any mention.
Well, the picture at wide receiver across the league right now is just insane. I mean, Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jackson Smith and Jig, but like there's so many great receivers. And those are just the guys who are kind of exploding this year. You have the guys who have consistently been great, and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and all of them. Other guys like Nico Collins have been great recently. So wide receiver is just a loaded position across the league. You have to be putting up bonkers numbers to be in there for the Pro Bowl conversation. But when it comes to Zaire Franklin, the one thing I did want to say is so much of defensive players getting into this game, especially for fans, are the splash plays, the turnovers, the tackles for a loss, the sacks. And we haven't really seen a ton of guys outside of Cameron Bynum who is in that top 10 because he has multiple interceptions this year. We haven't seen a ton of those like individuals on defense, like just racking those numbers up. So like when Zaire Franklin made it last year, I believe, right? Last year he had 6 forced fumbles and 4 interceptions or something, while also being up there in tackles. That contributes to him being like on those lists and stuff. So when it comes to linebacker, unfortunately or fortunately, however you want to view it, splash plays are king with everything, and he just hasn't really had the splash plays this year. I know he had that great forced fumble against the Chiefs, but not a ton of splash plays outside of that.
I'll tell you what else helps Cam is his interception celebration. That's name recognition.
Name recognition for sure. Yeah, he's got 4 interceptions now, right?
4 now.
Yeah, 4 now. I'm shocked. Actually, speaking of interceptions, I know Edge is such a loaded group, but I'm shocked we didn't see a little bit of Latu love on there with that because of the 3 interceptions at defensive end. I'm not saying he's played at a Pro Bowl level this year, but he's got the splash numbers with the 3 interceptions at defensive end.
I'm glad you said that, because I was just about to say, seeing an edge player with 3 interceptions is rare. And if he gets a few more sacks, if he finishes the year with 8.5 sacks and 3, maybe 4 interceptions, that might be really enticing. Now, I haven't looked at the ballot in forever. I haven't voted for the Pro Bowl, I feel like, in forever. So I don't know if it's going to list his interceptions right there, because it's not a common edge stat. But that if fans see an edge with 3 interceptions when none of the other ones even have 1, that might get him plenty of votes. I'll be honest with you.
The last time I voted for Pro Bowl, I just spammed Ashton Dulin votes all the time for Gunner. I just really wanted to get him in that game.
See,
I don't think he got it, though. I don't think he got it.
You have got to stop saying the names of people I'm about to talk about.
Oh, you were?
I was going to say, before Ashton went on IR, I thought he was well on his way to an all-pro Pro Bowl year. Now, maybe not the Pro Bowl, because that requires fan voting, but at least an all-pro year, I think. Because his work on special teams was just incredible this year. And then people can't help it. It doesn't have anything to do with special teams, but he'd been making enough plays and had earned notoriety on other sides of the ball where I think it would have earned him some cachet. I mean, he had that play where he blitzed Kyler Murray or Jacoby Brissett against the Cardinals. It seems like he's good for 1 big play a game on offense. So had he not gone on IR, I thought he was kind of on his way. So Taylor, that's a shoe-in. Taylor, mind you, regardless of what's gone on the last couple of games, is still leading the NFL in rushing by 60 yards.
Yep.
They're starting to creep up now. He's got to get going again if he's going to get the rushing crown once more, but still leading it somehow. Nelson, obviously, he's playing some of the best ball of his life. Warren's interesting because he can go kind of hot and cold. He'll give you 30 yards in a game, and then he'll go for 90 and a touchdown. I think just the general lack of depth at tight end certainly helps him. Trey McBride is going to break records this year, but then you got Tyler. Travis Kelce still has plenty of name recognition. George Kittle. Is there any other tight ends around there having big years? I can't really think of any.
No, it's Warren's going to be in the Pro Bowl as long as because he's going to have the raw numbers. Plus, he was a top pick. Plus, everyone. I mean, heck, everyone saw the playoff last year at Penn State and how much he was getting the ball. So as long as he just still puts up like solid numbers, he'll for sure be a Pro Bowler at the very least.
And Kelsey finally passed him in terms of yards. So now he's the second leading receiver among tight ends. But I have a question because maybe I should know this. How long has it since the fans have been able to vote on the Pro Bowl? Because I don't think that they were able to when I was playing that the fans voted.
Yeah, maybe they did. I think it's been like 10 or 15 years now.
Okay,
and they get a third of the vote, I believe, is what it is to get guys in there. Yeah.
All right, because what we would do, because as players we voted, and like if I was on offense, I would consult with some of the defensive guys, saying, well, who's the toughest defensive lineman you played against, or offensive lineman you played against, or what's the receiver you think that deserves it the most. And then we would get asked questions too, who's the baddest linebacker you have to go against. A lot of it is common knowledge, but then you just don't have enough knowledge to know every single position, especially when you got to hone in on the 11 that you play that week. You do build up some knowledge, but it's like the knowledge we build up as players is only on one side of the ball. I don't care who they got on offense. I got to study the defense and know who's on defense and know their tendencies and their idiosyncrasies. And, hopefully I'll get a chance to watch some of the game and we're not in some kind of meeting on the sideline, or I just need to rest and some Gatorade. So I can have a chance to watch the offense play. But I brought it up because I just didn't realize I didn't know when the fans started voting. But I do want to bring up one more point, and because you were talking about Ashton Doolin and trying to get him in as a special teams player. You remember the name Steve Tasker?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he actually started out with the Oilers, and he was on the team. And I always used to say to myself, what the hell is this dude doing on the team? Because he doesn't really look like he belongs, but he was one hellacious special teams player. But Jerry Glanville loved his ass. In fact, he nicknamed him Mini Brute. But he didn't really take off as a special teams player until he got to Buffalo. And when he got to Buffalo, he made plays all the time.
Yeah, I want to say though, in the Colts era with Chris Ballard, the Colts have had two special teams gunners make All-Pro team, but neither of them made Pro Bowl team. So that's kind of where that fan voting comes in. I always call it the what was that guy's name? Slater Award. The guy who was the gunner.
Matthew Slater.
Matthew Slater. I call it the Matthew Slater Award on Pro Bowl. When it comes to gunner, because you just have to be the only guy that people know your name, and you'll get in the Pro Bowl every single year as a gunner. But all pro is a little bit more indicative of like who the actual gunners were. Yeah. So Doolin that year that I was voting 100 times for him to get in the Pro Bowl as a gunner didn't get in to Pro Bowl, but I think he was a first team All Pro gunner. And George Odom was the other one. George Odom is back on the Colts and he's back playing safety. He'll maybe be out there playing that gunner role and hopefully get the Colts special teams back on track this week. But gunner's super important. One of my favorite positions in football.
I believe Luke Rhodes also has an All-Pro. So
yes,
Chris Ballard keeps bringing in some All-Pro special teamers.
Extend him. Got to extend him now for all the special teamers.
Have to. All right, guys. So coming up next, we're going to go ahead and get to our overreactions and underreactions. And like Zach mentioned earlier, they dropped 3 of the last 4, so there are plenty to go through. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as a guy heats up. And you could bet the next touchdown, scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. Colts fans, for you, focus on this one. This Sunday, it's pretty much a pick 'em. The Colts are 1.5-point favorites in Jacksonville, where they have not won since 2014. So do with that what you will. The point total over-under is at 47.5 as well. And I think the weather is supposed to be not so great. So again, take that into account. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, then visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All right, welcome back, everydayers. Now, as we do every Wednesday evening, let's go ahead and get into some underreactions and overreactions. And man, let's start with our underreactions. Is there anything, either of you, that we are just not paying enough attention to as a fan base, as media, whatever? Like, is there something that you just think we need to be talking way more about?
I think we're underreacting to the Jacksonville curse. It's real, man. It's very real.
I agree. I agree.
No, but I mean, honestly, every game's tough. Divisional. I think we are kind of underreacting to Steichen's struggles against Houston and Jacksonville the last couple of years. And I don't want to go too much into it here because we talked about it on the Daily Show today. But 2-7 against Houston and Jacksonville in his time as the Colts head coach. And it's not only on the coach, but the way I referred to it earlier is like, the manager gets the blame when the employees are screwing up constantly. And these are the games that you can't afford to drop. Like if you want to win the division, if you want to make the playoffs, which he has not done either of in his time as the Colts head coach, you have to beat the good teams in your division. Allen always brings up games against Washington and games against all these teams, these are vital games to make the playoffs, and it just can't happen as a head coach. And we saw in the college football level, Penn State moving on from James Franklin because of all these losses in conference to ranked opponents. And maybe Franklin's a good coach and maybe Steichen's a good coach, but like if you keep falling short against your biggest competitors in your division and falling behind them, that does reflect on you as a coach. So I do think that maybe there's some overreaction with Shane Steichen, but I do think we are kind of underreacting to those struggles against Houston and Jacksonville in particular. 2-7 against your two teams that you're competing with the most in division and your time since taking over the team. It just can't happen as a head coach.
I would agree with you because the division games are the most important games. Those are when you want to be at your best because that is the easiest path to the playoffs. You win your division, so to have a record like that, I'm sure that's one of those things that in the offseason drives him crazy and probably has him sitting in the film room all the time trying to figure out how to break that code to make sure that he has some kind of plan to get rid of this Jacksonville curse and to emphasize how important winning the division games are. So that was a good, underreaction.
Yeah, it's just been a frustrating thing. But Jake, do you have an underreaction that you want to kick it off? Because I'm assuming when you led it with underreaction, you had one in mind.
Well, I was going to say, I think you'll really like this one. I think just, again, nationally and even locally, I think we're underreacting to the value of Grover Stewart. He is someone who really came to mind after I rewatched last week. Now, like the run defense is not great right now. Don't get me wrong, but we've seen it. We've seen what it looks like without him in 2023 when he had that suspension. So they're without Buckner right now, obviously. But if they didn't have him right now, I think it would arguably look even worse because you'd have to have like Neville Gallimore playing out of position. Your lineups would not be as cohesive, I don't think. And then when I went back and I watched, he had that pass breakup, that batted pass against CJ Stroud last week. That was in the first half, I believe. That would have been a touchdown. No question about it. When I went back and watched it, if he didn't bat that, the game might have been over at that point. You know what I mean? With how tough it was for the Colts to score. I just think the presence of a Grover Stewart, some of his run stuffs that he's able to come up with when they're already kind of in dire straits against the run at the moment, I think he is just so incredibly valuable right now.
Yeah, I think there has been a little too much criticism with Grover Stewart. Like, yes, he's a limited player. He's not going to be this 10-sack guy from the interior. He's not a pass rusher. Heck, the fact that he's giving them some pass deflections and a couple sacks this season is more than what you bargained for when you extend him. You extend him for the run defense. And if we're sitting here saying, like, oh, the Colts run defense could be a little bit better, they've given up, a couple of solid performances. Imagine what it would be without Grover Stewart. That's the thing. Like, if they're middling right now with him, imagine what they would be 32nd in the NFL, 30th in the NFL. So, when you talk about the issues on defense, I'm not really too concerned with Grover Stewart. I think he's been pretty good this year. And like you mentioned, the batted balls have been an added plus this season. Not only batting one up for an interception for himself against the Chargers, batting one up for Leatu Latu interception against the Raiders that would have been a touchdown, and then the touchdown saving bat this past week that forced a field goal. He stole 4 points with that deflection there. I think he's been a plus player for the Colts on a defense that has been up and down this year.
Are you ready for overreactions? Because I got a couple.
Yeah, I got a couple overreactions as well.
Let's go.
All right. So I know that Josh Downs missed a couple of catches last week, but I didn't realize that he hasn't dropped a pass all year long.
Until those two. Yeah.
You're right. But it's one of those deals where you don't know the kicker's name until he misses a kick. And I guess he was just he's so reliable that when you put it anywhere around him, he catches it and makes something happen. But I did notice on the Colts website that was one of the things they pointed out, the 2 drops that he had, but he hadn't dropped one all year long, and they actually talked to him about it. So that may be an overreaction because you've probably heard me say it. You can't catch every pass. You just hope that you don't drop one in a crucial situation. So that's one overreaction. The other overreaction is I know some of the national media has regressed on Daniel Jones and applying pressure to him, but and this is one of those where you can argue stats. What the hell is an EPA per? So
yeah,
this is a Zach question.
He had the highest EPA, which means that the blitz didn't really bother him. He was able to react to the blitz. But as when you're just sitting there watching them, like, dude, get rid of the ball. Dude, throw the ball. Dude, stand in there and take the hit. But he was really, really efficient for this being the number 1 defense in the NFL. He had probably a better game than anybody else just dealing with the pressure. So I think sometimes we overreact to incomplete passes or missed passes. But I mean, he's doing this on a broken leg too. So we may be overreacted. And then my last overreaction, I hope I'm not taking anybody's overreaction, but sometimes I don't give a damn about the stats, and then sometimes stats are a great talking point for me. But sometimes you feel like the defense really isn't stopping people a lot of times. And yes, the Colts have lost 3 out of the last 4, but out of the last 47 positions, you know how many times the opposing offense has scored a touchdown?
Man, it's got to be only like, 4 or 5 probably?
9.
9, yeah. Because the Chiefs and the Texans didn't score touchdowns in those games. There's a lot of field goals, and they held the ball. But, yeah, they're doing a good – like, you want them to be cleaner. You want them to get off the field a little bit more on third downs. But they are not breaking in the red zone. They're doing a good job standing tall. So I agree. Like, for the negatives that there are positives that they're keeping the Colts in games by holding teams to 3 in a lot of these situations. So, yeah, I do think that's a bit of an overreaction. To go to Daniel Jones, too, I'm going to have a video on him tomorrow on my personal channel, but I thought this was one of his better performances of the year, honestly. Now, there are limitations with his injury, but he made some big time throws in this game that we haven't seen in a month or so from him. The couple throws to Josh Downs, the touchdown to Alec Pierce. I mean, even that third down play late in the game that Downs dropped, I thought was a very, very nice read against the blitz. They brought 7 guys on that play. He threw it outside. Honestly, I think the only negative play I graded for him, and it's unfortunate, was the final offensive play of the game. I think he just made the wrong read and threw it a bit high, but I think every other play he made the right decision or made the best decision he possibly could, and he had a pretty good game. And then for Downs, Alan, I do agree that some of the talking points have been a bit aggressive on him. It's not like he had this horrendous game. He had a volatile game. It was these highlight reel, like Sports Center top 10 plays or drops. Like that was his entire game. You want there to be a little bit more consistency and cleaner, but like, yes, the drops were bad, but he also made that insane catch on the sideline. He also made one that was taken off the board because of a penalty, but that one he caught when the safety closing down and crunching him, that diving catch on the left sideline was another great catch he made. A couple other, like, I think he had a fine game. It's just the fine game was some great plays, some bad plays, and it came out to be fine. You want it to be a little bit more consistent, but with Downs, you usually get a pretty consistent player. It just sucks that the one big drop came in such a high leverage position late, and that's kind of been the theme with the Colts against these divisional teams, and you want to clean that up.
Yeah, that obviously puts things in such a spotlight. I think the Jones one especially is a very big overreaction, because I have seen some people saying like he sucks, like he had a terrible game, this and that. And I just really don't think that was the case. Like when you put it in context of what he's physically able to do right now and how they're using him, I mean, not every incompletion is the quarterback's fault. You know what I mean? I've talked a lot about this week. Guys not getting enough separation. Maybe they're being outgunned for the ball by the defender, because I do think defenses are keying in a little bit. On what the Colts are doing, throwing the ball over the middle of the field in between the numbers. So I think it's just been more difficult for them to pass the ball lately because they're just a little bit more predictable. But when you go 2 weeks ago against the Chiefs, the Colts barely pushed the ball down the field at all. They had one throw over 20 yards, and that was to Pierce, which they converted. And I think they had 5 over beyond 10 yards. And this one, Jones was throwing all over the yard, and it looked really good. He had that insane one to Downs on the sideline. Like you mentioned, the Pierce one in the back corner of the end zone into double coverage where only Pierce could get to it. And really, really good throws. I mean, his leg is broken, not his arm. I think he is throwing some seeds out there. I think he has had some of his better passes, honestly, since his leg has been broken, which sounds weird to say. But then Downs, I think it's kind of easy to pile on Downs just because he's in a more limited role. His usage has decreased. Tyler Warren is eating into some of the stuff he normally does. And you can't really take a guy like Pierce off the field. They don't play the same receiver position, but there are just some guys who can't leave the field, and it's leading to a decrease in action for Downs. So when he does get thrown the ball and something not positive happens, it's just kind of easy to pile onto him. But overall, he's still an asset for them to have. I would like to see them get him the ball more, because we've seen over the last 2 years he's capable of more. He used to be the kind of player that bailed them out of games and was the reason they won games. Like, Zach, I'm sure you can think of a couple off the top of your head. Or the Patriots game over in Frankfurt a couple years ago. Gardner Minshew threw a ball he had no business getting complete, but Downs dove for it and caught it. He's done that like 4 or 5 times over the past couple years. So he's a guy who they normally win because of, but we're still kind of waiting on that performance this year. It's been a lot of like 4 for 34 yards and stuff like that. Like, we know he's capable of more. It's just, they haven't really dialed it up to be his day yet. I haven't noticed.
Well, and I'll tell you one of the things I've noticed now, and I would say give credit to all these opposing defensive coordinators. But earlier in the year, when they would run routes, there would be so much space that you couldn't help but gain 5 or 10 extra yards because nobody was around them. But now I think these opposing defenses, they're squatting on a lot of these routes. And now these throws are contested, where early in the year they weren't contested. So, I mean, that's where, as an offense, you got to scout yourself, and make sure that you're mixing up some of these, because if you keep running the same thing on 3rd and 5 or the same thing on 3rd and 8, then the defensive backs, they see it on film, they're not going to drop back past 8, and they're just going to react to, because they know what route you're running.
Yeah, my only slight response I want to get in before we jump to the last segment, Jake, is this was one of the few games where the Colts were dialing things up for downs, and he had to be the difference maker. And unfortunately, there were the 2 notable plays on 3rd down where he just came up short. So the 2 times that we really seen the Colts dial up Josh Downs and say, hey, we need you to be a difference maker in this game. One, he absolutely knocked out the park in that Denver game early in the season, and then he was going to be their answer on a lot of 3rd downs in this past game. And for most of the game it's just those 2 notable exceptions. And this kind of talks about complementary football. When your defense is allowing such long drives and teams to sustain possession, you don't get many opportunities to rectify those mistakes. So 2 big drops in a game like this are much more impactful than like 2 drops, say, against like the Raiders, where you're going to get 25 possessions because the Raiders offense can't string together possessions. In this one, you get like 7 opportunities to have the football. And if 2 of them are ending because of drops to your wide receiver, that's a difference in a game. So Downs just needs to get back on it, make sure he's a little bit more consistent the next game. But they did certainly, like, he was their answer on a lot of these plays. And unfortunately, like the biggest one of the day, he just came up a little bit short.
Yeah, but that's a guy who I think he earns a little grace for what he's done the past couple of years. He's not someone I'm really worried about. He'll rebound at some point. But coming up, guys, we're going to go ahead and take a look ahead to Jacksonville. Is it cursed? And, this game is pivotal. How worried are you that the Colts may not even make the playoffs at this point if they lose this one? All right, welcome back, everydayers. Now we are about to start talking about the much anticipated, the much dreaded Jacksonville game this week. I don't know if you guys have it circled on your calendars every year or if you just would like to hit the fast forward button through it each year. But nonetheless, it has arrived, you could say, at a bad time since the Colts have lost 3 of the last 4. But yeah, so it looks like the Colts will be facing a somewhat resurgent Jags team. The Jags started out hot for the year. They kind of sputtered a bit as Trevor Lawrence did whatever Trevor Lawrence does. And now they've kind of started to kick it in gear a little bit. They got Brenton Strange back, which has helped. Brian Thomas Jr. has gotten a little bit better. They traded for Jacoby Myers, which has helped. So Zach, go ahead and tell us what's your overall vibes for this game. And if they lose, what's your worry level about missing the playoffs? Because I'll tell you, a month ago, they've been at 99% likelihood, 95% likelihood. They're down to 73.9% likelihood per ESPN at making the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, and it's one of the biggest leverage games of the week, because I think the model has the Colts dropping to like a 50-50 chance that they lose and has them jumping up to like an 87% chance if they win. So it's a massive leverage game for the Colts. And again, just to go back to what we said about Steichen, like, it's a big game for him to show that he can win in this division against other competitive football teams. 6-0 against the Titans is great, but like, let's get some wins against the Jaguars and the Texans. So I think it's vital for the Colts and vital for Steichen, obviously, here in this tight playoff race, get back in that lead in the AFC South. So if they drop this one, I think there should be a ton of concern for missing the playoffs. And I think rightfully so. Dropping 4 out of 5 down the stretch is not what you want to see from your team. In terms of this matchup, though, it's such a fascinating game because the vibes are terrible going to Jacksonville. The vibes are always terrible going to Jacksonville, but like, on paper, Jacksonville is such a weird team, probably the weirdest team in the playoff race on either division right now, because they can either be the best team in football one week or they could be a team capable of losing to anybody. They've had a bad drop issue all year long. They've been sloppy in a lot of games. Their defense has been so turnover reliant in a lot of situations where they've struggled at times on early downs and struggled when they're not getting those big turnovers to stop teams. but I think they're a really well-coached team. I think Liam Cohen has done some really good things this year. And I think Coach Camp on the other side, coaching that defense, has found some extra juice to steal some turnovers and get some good things going for them. So I'm not convinced that they're some great football team because they did eke out a lot of one-score wins early in the season against some bad teams. And we've seen some volatility with them overall in terms of the performance on the field. But I think they're a well-coached football team that plays hard and knows how to just attack teams. So it's going to be a fight in Jacksonville for sure. The Colts need to be ready for this team because Jacksonville is a pretty feisty football team. And if Jacksonville comes out a little bit sloppy like they have, the Colts got to be able to take advantage because this is going to be one of those coin flip type games where every bit of sloppiness or every bit of mistakes are going to be like amplified in a game like this. And the Colts have been on the wrong end of those last 2 weeks of just the sloppiness and the drops and the timely drops and timely mistakes. The Colts have been on the wrong end, and that's why they've lost these coin flip games, the last 2 games. The key is just making sure that you're the one taking advantage this week so they can get the win in Jacksonville. So must-win game for sure. Like if last week was a must-win game, this is an absolute 100% must-win game. Oh my gosh, please win this football game or else type game for the Colts because all that leverage they built up in the early season is fading fast. Now they have to win the cursed game in Jacksonville to keep their playoff hopes alive.
I would say they're one of the best teams that you know nothing about because they don't get a lot of national television appearances. They don't get a lot of fanfare. But looking at some of the stats, here I go again looking at stats. But they are the number 11 best defense in terms of yards allowed. So they're doing something right. They're not top 10, but they're one outside the top 10. So they're doing something right. Their offensive numbers are dreadful, but they still won 8 games.
They're just a sloppy team. They're a sloppy team, but they're well coached. And I think they have some good ingredients going there. But they are like week to week they can change. Like the last 2 weeks, their defense has allowed like 6 points and 9 points or something. They killed the Chargers, just an absolute beatdown there. But you'll see them go to overtime against the Cardinals or something in this weird back and forth game that Cardinals are way down and out right now on their luck, but the Jaguars will still play them in a overtime type game. And that's kind of been their consistent thing this whole year is no matter who they're playing, it's going to be just dependent on what kind of Jacksonville team shows up. So the Colts got to be ready. You got to expect that you're playing the best version of Jacksonville. That's what you got to do because when they're on, they can beat anybody. When they're on and that run game is clicking and their O-line is just kicking butt up front, their defense is taking the football away, a game could snowball into a 20-point deficit like that. They have the ability to turn games into that. But also with the inconsistency in their passing game, with their quarterback kind of being hit or miss, with their defense being very turnover reliant, you can also get one up on them early. So the Colts got to be ready for whichever Jacksonville team shows up and show that you're just the more prepared team out the gate.
Well, I wish I could give you some insight because I was trying to think of, the 6 years I played with the Oilers. Was there ever a team or a stadium that I went to that was never able to win? And it was especially in divisional games because we were always going to make a trip to Cincinnati or to Pittsburgh or to Cleveland, which one of the worst stadiums I played in was also my favorite stadium to play in, which was the Mistake by the Lake, Cleveland Municipal Stadium. I just loved the history of it, but you talk about a dump. But I wish I could give you insight. I also thought about in college, was there a place that you went to where you just couldn't win? And I'll just keep it short. Notre Dame, started having in the I guess late 90s and the early 2000s, they started having a little problem with Boston College. Boston College just had their number. So the best thing you can do is take them off your schedule, keep them off for about 4 or 5 years, bring in some other recruits that have no memory of Boston College, then go beat their ass. but you can't do that in the NFL.
I got to say,
because
we
there's
got to
only
move
32
divisions
teams
or something here
Yeah,
against Jacksonville.
you can't do that. But there were definitely some stadiums that we didn't have a winning record in, but I do remember going in and winning certain games against these teams. So it's just, when it's amazing when you get on the road how things can go bad and you fall into this like little hole where nothing can go right, none of the calls go your way. The plays you thought were going to be dynamic plays that are really going to work, they just go for no gain or they don't work at all. And you just sitting there frustrated about, man, we just knew we had a great game plan, but everything went against us. So it's just one of those, you just got to be detail oriented and play the game of your life and play it like, it's a playoff game. Because I tell you what, with these last 5 games the Colts have, if they can win a majority of these, they will be playoff ready because they will be battle tested because every single team has a winning record, and I guess I saw on some national media show that they, of any team in the league, have the toughest 5 games left of anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, they have to. They're playing division leader twice in Jacksonville. They're playing Seattle, who's a division leader I guess Seattle's the number 2 seed in that division, but it's the best division in football. Then you play the 49ers, who have been very good this year as well. And then you close it out at Houston, the team that just beat you in your own home stadium. So yeah, it's a very difficult schedule. It's a winnable schedule, but the Colts can't be making these mental errors they've made the last 2 weeks. If you're dropping on 3rd down, if you're fumbling 4th down snaps, you're missing extra points, you're going 3 and out 10 straight times in a row, like it felt like they did in that 4th quarter of Kansas City into the 1st quarter of Houston, you're not going to win these games. So they need to be on point with what they're doing. Their execution needs to be better. And that's the big thing. Like, look, if they go out there on these last couple Sundays, and I guess that 49ers game is a primetime game, if they go out there just fighting their butts off and they're executing well, but the other team's just better, so be it. So be it. That, but like, let's not lose games because of missed kicks and drop balls and fumbled snaps. Like, if we're gonna lose a game, have them just be better than you. Don't be kicking yourself afterwards because of the mental mistakes you made. That's the stuff that really gets on you. For me, again, who views everything from like that coach lens, there's nothing more infuriating than that, where it's like we had them beat. We just dropped the ball here and missed a kick here, dropped a fumble here. Like, they didn't make those mistakes, and that's why they won. So the Colts need to be on point these last 5 games, be as locked in as they've been all year, and just get over the hump here and get in the playoffs, because anything can happen once you get in the playoffs.
And I agree with you. Even though the Texans had the number 1 defense, the Texans were not a better team than the Colts.
Yeah, so try this one on for size. The weather is supposed to be not so great. Could be, monsoony out there. Do you think that plays into the Colts' favor? They've obviously got Jonathan Taylor. Their quarterback is not going to be reliant on moving around much. They've got quick winners and guys like Tyler Warren, Josh Downs. You got yak guys, Warren, Downs, Pittman. Does that play into the Colts' hand at all? Like, if you're going to have to rely on the run and go short, quick passing game.
We always say this. We always say this when they're more run. We said this in 2021 a ton or whatever. Like, oh, the Colts are a run-heavy team, so we want them to be in dirty weather. And then when they got in dirty weather, it's like this dome team isn't ready for it. This dome. Remember, what was it? The Kansas City playoff game back in the day. We thought with in 2018. With Andrew Luck, it was like a bad weather game. We're like, oh, the Colts are gonna run all over them.
It was just cold.
We're a dome team. Yeah. We're a dome team. No, but all seriousness, the bad weather games can work in your favor if you're ready to play some old school football. If you're a physical one, ready for that like smash mouth football game. So it's all about your mindset when you come out there for a game. Like, you could have Jonathan Taylor for sure and say on paper, like, this is great for us, but like, you have to have your offensive linemen ready for that. Your linebackers ready to fit the run and stay on their feet. So it really just comes down to the mindset of what you're coming in. Jacksonville's a young and hungry team that have been playing some physical football. So I wouldn't automatically say that favors the Colts. It comes down to which team is ready to go from the first whistle.
Yeah, and I'll say this, weather does not make a difference. In fact, the players are the most comfortable people in the stadium, especially in a cold game because they got heated benches, and they're only there for 3 hours, and then they get on the plane and go home. But I think this is a game where, the heck with the weather. They got to be balanced on offense, got to be detail-oriented, and you're right. It is a mindset, especially for a road game where you got to be locked in even more for a road game. And if they handle that side of the business, then they should be fine.
Well, you guys heard it here first. That we're going to put a bow on it there. The Colts, this is about as must win as it gets for the Colts. They just dropped the division game last week. Can't really afford to do it again. Because, if the Texans find a way to knock off the Chiefs and the Colts lose this one, it's pretty worrisome. We'll put it that way. But, we're going to be back with you guys tomorrow. I spoke with Tony Wiggins of Locked On Jaguars for Crossover Thursday. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us tonight. If you don't already, follow at Locked On Colts on social media. Also, please be sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. We would love your ratings and reviews as well. That helps get more eyes and ears on us. And with that, you guys have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow again for Crossover Thursday.